riots, knife crime and threats to kill may seem more applicable to the streets of London than the quiet and relatively safe island of Jersey. Yet all three and other issues of public safety are being addressed in new laws proposed by Home Affairs Minister Helen Miles. I spoke to Police Chief Robin Smith about how the legislation could help the force protect islanders and crack down on certain offences. I started by asking him when was the last time Jersey saw a riot break out.
I'm not sure when we had the last riot, actually, and of course, quite rightly, you'd focus on that in that important piece of legislation for 1797, I'm told. Of course, we don't have riots, but of course, the serious point is the determination to tidy up old legislation and make sure that we've got the right laws to protect islanders. So I for one, am really pleased that we've got legislation, proposed legislation around threats to kill, threats to cause rape, or to cause physical injury. Now, that is very important legislation, not least of which, given that only in the last couple of weeks, and indeed, you know, all the media in the island has really done well in promoting the report against violence against women and girls. So to have this legislation, particularly when it's relating to threats to kill or rape, is really good timing. The timing is coincidental, but it's really good timing, and I applaud the government that we're looking to get those bits of legislation in now.
Yes, and one other aspect we mentioned is knife crime. I appreciate the numbers are small, you may want to go into those. No cause for alarm, but I think the message here is we can't be complacent.
That's the number one message, and I'll go back to that in a minute. So in terms of recorded knife crime, 42 in 2020, 30 in 2021, and 41 in 2022. Remarkably consistent. But of course, knife crime, quite rightly, we contextualise knife crime to what we see in other jurisdictions, often in America, sometimes in London, etc. And knife crime is then sort of almost like conflated with, well, knife crime means stabbings and injury. Of course, that's not the case. Only 9 involve any form of stabbing and slashing. And I'm also, at this point, sort of mindful of the awful events in Castle Key on Saturday. You know, we still have a very sick person in hospital, and I send my best wishes to her and her family. I think the whole time that those sorts of incidents are shocking, it is, if you like, one of my sort of proxy measures. If we are no longer shocked by those things, then we certainly do have a problem in the island, which of course we haven't got. People will remember the stabbing of a young person by 2 other young people at Leggett. People still talk about that, and it may surprise you to know that that's 2 years ago in January. So the whole time that we are shocked tells me that that's probably one of those measures that is not a bad thing. You mentioned about complacency. Now, whilst the numbers are small, particularly numbers involving young people are very small, if we are complacent in any way, which I refuse to be, and indeed police service is not just the only people that participate in this. You know, SIPES and our colleagues in schools work very hard to, and an island effort to make sure that we cannot be complacent, and that this new legislation helps us not to be complacent, and we'll be forever vigilant.
Can you explain why that is? I appreciate we've expanded the definition as to what constitutes possessing an offensive weapon, and there's also, in terms of how the offence is committed, changes there. Can you explain why that might help?
Well, it'll certainly help officers in the street, and certainly, you know, schools being made public places as well in the interests of any form of knife crime. As you mentioned earlier, this is helpful in terms of alerting and not alarming. You referenced that earlier. But it also, for me, is about being preventative. The best way to stop these crimes is to prevent them in the first place. And if they act as a deterrent, and if the new legislation acts as a deterrent, as well as providing the officers with the ability to use their powers more effectively, all that means to me ultimately is we're keeping islanders safe.
Fantastic. And the proposition overall, I assume you welcome it there, due to be debated early in January. Lots of different aspects in there, a fray. We've also got new powers for centenniers. As a whole, you're broadly supportive of it?
I'm supportive of it exclusively, and quite rightly will be debated, maybe fine-tuned to a degree, but at least we can, the Assembly can have that debate. And if there's one thing I can speak with absolute confidence of, is that everybody participating in this has one thing in mind, and that is, how do we keep islanders safe?
That was Police Chief Robin Smith giving his take on the new laws. They could be debated as early as January. But in the meantime, for other crime news and more, please check out bailiwickexpress.com or our sister publication, the Jersey Evening Post. But for now, from the Bailiwick Express team, thanks for listening. More next week.